Just as a quick reminder, please keep your phones on silent mode throughout the program just to make sure that there's minimal distractions, excuse me. Other than that, I would like to request our dear guest scholar to ascend the minbar with your three loud salawat.
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. Thank you, Allah. اللهم صل على محمد وآل اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. السلام عليكم جميعا ورحمة الله وبركاته. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم وصلى الله على سيدنا ونبينا وحبيب قلوبنا وشفيع ذنوبنا أبي القاسم المصطفى محمد. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد وعلى أهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين ولعنة الله على أعدائهم أجمعين من الآن إلى قيام يوم الدين ولا حول ولا قوة إلا بالله العلي العظيم. It is the day of Friday. It belongs to our Imam of time, Hazrat Sahib al-Asr wal-Zaman, Ajalallah ta'ala farajahu sharif. Before we start our majlis, inshallah we can recite dua faraj together. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Allahumma كل وليك الحجة ابن الحسن صلواتك عليهم وعلى آبائهم في هذه الساعة وفي كل ساعة وليا وحافظا وقائدا وناصرا ودليلا وعينا حتى تسكنه أرضك طوعا وتمتعه فيها طويلا برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين. صلوات. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد وعجل فرجهم. And inshallah, again, before we can get started, we can remember all the marhumin and marhumat, especially the newly deceased ones, all the beloved ones, brothers and sisters from the community, mu'minin and mu'minat from around the world, especially those who have dedicated their life and resources on the path of Islam, including all the shuhadas, recent shuhada, rahbar shaheed, and all of those who have dedicated their time as volunteers or in any form possible on the tradition of the Maktab of Ahlul Bayt and the Quran by reciting aloud salawat followed by Surah Al-Fatiha. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. So Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen, we're thankful to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for this bounty and blessing to be able to get together tonight, Alhamdulillah, under the roof, but every night under the tent with the banner, beautiful banner of Sayyid al-Shuhada alayhi salatu wassalam in the month of Muharram. And already it's the fifth night, so meaning half of the 10 days, half of the first Ashara is already on the pass and on the passing mode. And it's going to become a lot faster as we get closer and closer to the day of Ashura, just because the amount of mercy of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, it reveals itself at its max. So the more of that mercy, is revealed, the more difficult it becomes for people such as myself who have limited capabilities to be able to tolerate it, which is why a lot of times the time flies by. No problem. So we started our discussion on two, general concepts. Which one was mercy? Second one was justice. And we try to understand number one, what mercy means in relation to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Two, what does justice means when it comes to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And then three, how these two concepts, which we drive the conclusion that both of these two concepts forms the reality of everything that we can find around ourselves, within ourselves. So that was the conclusion from previous discussions. Then we try to take these two concepts and we try to apply it to the different figures, different personalities, different names of the movement of Imam al-Hussein, starting with the Ashab and companions. Then inshallah we move closer to the Bani Hashim, and inshallah hopefully we can drive some lessons from the personality and characteristics of Abu Abdullah al-Hussein. So this is the overall the plan of our discussions for these coming nights. Now, just as a reminder, what was mercy? Anybody remembers? Anybody can help me out? Maybe we have to have the pop quiz and then have some nazar for those who answer it correctly, right? Inshallah. Recite the salawat. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. We define mercy, literally speaking, as existence, meaning whatever thing you can point out, whatever thing you can actually assume, whatever thing you can feel like touch within the physical world or the next realms, right? The source of it is mercy of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Mercy is not feeling, it's not like how we feel merciful towards one another, how we feel kind and how we try to like sympathize. No, that's not mercy in which we're referring to. Right? That's a human aspect of it. Inshallah, we can talk about it in another session. But we're talking in relation to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And we said the mercy of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the source of every single little thing that you can lay eyes or points towards it and call it a being, right? An existence. Then what was justice? Justice was to actually place this mercy of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in its proper place, in its proper position, to the extent that is needed, not any more, not any less, making sure it actually actualizes the utmost amount of capabilities that it contains. So that was the definition of justice, correct? Then we start talking about mercy a little bit more. Why? Because now we want to find the application. So what are the examples of the mercy of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? And I don't want to go to the theological discussions, right? No, I'm thinking what would be a perfect example of a mercy of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? If someone walks up to you, non-Muslim, non-believer, atheist, whoever you want to talk, and you were talking about the mercy of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, a lot of times the discussion gets diverted towards all the evil that we see happens in the world. That's the theological aspect of it. But for the sake of our argument, I'm going to focus on the application in which we can find within our life in any given year. So what will be an example of the mercy of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala with our life? We can start with ourselves, right? The life that we've been given, the health that we've been given, the parents that we have, the family that we have, the siblings that we have, the community that we have, the lectures that we get, the access that we have to the teachings of the Ahlul Bayt and the Quran. As a matter of the fact, the Holy Book of the Quran becomes one of the perfect example of the mercy of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that contains justice within it. Because whoever actually focuses on the Quran, whoever practices the teachings of the Quran, right? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala calls it rahmah, rahmatan lil mu'minin. It is a source of mercy for believers. What does it mean? It means only believers, because they practice according to the teachings of the Quran, they actually get the mercy of the Quran. What's other example? وَمَا أَرْسَلْنَاكَ إِلَّا رَحْمَةً لِلْعَالَمِينَ. Who's the ayah referring to? We did not send you except rahmatan lil alamin. The ayah is talking about Nabi Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wasallam, right? And it's talking to him that we did not send you except for this purpose, except for this function. What's the function? Rahmatan lil alamin. Mercy for who? Alamin. What does alamin mean? One world, two worlds, all the worlds, right? If it's rahmatan lil alameen, why do we always say the Prophet of Islam? Why do we say the Messenger of Islam? If he's only for the Muslims, if it's only for those who follow, let's say, Quran and the teachings of the Ahlul Bayt, why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says rahmatan lil alameen? See, that's the first point we have to understand. The mercy of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is not exclusive. It's not only for me and you. It's not only the month of Muharram. It's not only on the 10th of Ashura. It's not only for those who cry for the sake of Imam al-Hussein. No. Again, it's diverse as you can possibly think, right? Not only the mercy of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, but even the perfect example of the mercy of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will be the personality of Nabi Rasulullah becomes a source of mercy for every single human being from day one all the way till day of Qiyamah. Not only human beings, even the angels, even the archangels, even someone such as Jibreel. Jibreel is one of the archangels. What does archangel mean? Meaning like their status is so close to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that they have that ultimate, let's say, sovereignty over all of the other angels. So like the big guys, right? So he's one of those, and then he's asked, have you ever received a portion of this mercy of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, in which in the Quran refers to Nabi Rasulullah and says, وَمَا أَرْسَلْنَاكَ إِلَّا رَحْمَةً لِلْعَالَمِينَ. Right? Oh Jibreel, have you received a portion of this mercy? What does he say? It's not like, oh, I'm an angel, I'm above human. No. He says, yes, in fact, I have received and I have included in this mercy. He ask him, how? He says, when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala actually sent Nabi Rasulullah through the mercy that was given through and was projected through the personality of Nabi Rasulullah, even me, the Jibreel, collected some of the mercy of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So as if like through the gateway of Nabi Rasulullah, Jibreel becomes and like maintains his closeness to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So that's one example. Okay, so after the Prophet, right? Who will be the next in line when it comes to the perfect example of mercy of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, in which presents at the same time the justice of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? Who becomes? Who's right after the Nabi Rasulullah? Our Imams, right? The immaculate Imams, right? For example, Amir al-Mu'mineen, Imam al-Hassan al-Mujtaba, Imam al-Hussein, Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. All the way to our time, which is our Sahib al-Zaman, Ajalallah ta'ala faraj al-Sharif, right? So, and that's why, like, when you look at, for example, some of the ziyarat, when we want to talk to the Ahlul Bayt, when we want to talk to the Immaculate Imams, we use the term, for example, Ma'adana Rahmah, Ma'adana Rahmah. Or sometimes we refer to them as Ainur Rahmah, right? These are different terminology we use in different ziyarat when we want to talk to our Imams. Why? Number one, we call them ma'adan. Ma'adan means the source, like the mine of mercy. We want to put all of the mercy of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in one mine, right? All the source in one place, right? That place will be the Ahlul Bayt. That place will be our Immaculate Imams. That place will be our Sahib az-Zaman. Which is why we always spend time, like, we're supposed to be getting the habit of getting to know Him. Why? Because that's the source. If I want to be smart, I have to get to know where I'm going to get the mercy from, right? Or sometimes we call them Ain or Rahmah. Ain has different, like, definition within the Arabic language. One of them is the spring, the fountain in which something starts, right? So, if you translate it this way, it makes sense. Sometimes they say, no, it's a similarity. When two things are exactly identical, we use Ain. This is Ain, this one means like this is exactly like that one. So when we say Ain or Rahmah, meaning the Ahlul Bayt become exactly identical to the mercy of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And sometimes they refer to it as I mentioned, the source, the fountain of the mercy of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, which is why we say that literally all the blessings we receive, not only us, entire humanity, it is through the channel of the Ahlul Bayt. Because that's, again, remember the first premises, whatever we can find, it is formed out of mercy, not out of wrath. Therefore, whatever we find in terms of bounties and barakat and blessings comes through the fountain of mercy, which is the Ahlul Bayt. So what does that imply for me and you? It becomes my responsibility, right? If I, especially like a smart mu'min or mu'mina, to try to get as close as possible to this source. So I get the mercy directly instead of going through all of these channels and instead of just being given to me without me acknowledging it, right? Without me acknowledging it. Why? Because we're talking about growth. We're not talking about just making it like, at the end of the day, even. We're saying that, okay, we believe in the hereafter, which means the hereafter becomes an ultimate objective. The world, all the material world, the mundane world, everything within it just becomes the means in which we're supposed to sort of put ourselves to a test and trial. To what extent I'm able to give up a temporary, like, let's say, leisure, temporary, like, enjoyment for the sake of an infinite amount of enjoyment. This part, we have to always think about it, right? A lot of times say, oh, it's so hard to focus on the hereafter. No, technically it's not hard. It's actually more difficult to focus on this dunya. Why? Because everything we gain in this dunya, in this world, is subjected to change at a very rapid, speed. Look around the world. So many people, all of a sudden, their entire dream collapsed within few seconds, right? I think a couple of years ago there was a this big earthquake in the country like Turkey, right? When you look at the videos over there, none of those people they were assuming that something like that is going to happen, and within few seconds, few minutes, their entire dream, their entire wishes, everything they had worked on, everything they had built towards, it collapsed. Same thing within our own world. With the arrival of the AI, for example, era in some states more than the other, the waves and waves of people getting laid off to the point that it becomes one of the top concerns when you even ask the AI itself, what are the problems in living in the West? And one of the first things it says is lack of job. Why? Because AI is taking over everything. AI is considered himself as the biggest enemy of humans' dreams, right? So in 1 second, everything changes. Imagine you've been studying so hard, right? You finally made it to college, you finally made it to university, you have become the perfect coder, right? Now you know everything in and out, you can do it with your eyes closed, and all of a sudden this AI comes and does a better job than you. And businesses, they're not in it for joke, they're in it for the profit and the gain. So you easily get replaced with a code, right? So now what are we gonna do? We're gonna start crying to ourselves? Or no, the whole objective is different, right? And that's why the whole purpose has to be laid out on the hereafter versus this dunya. The more we focus on this dunya, the more stress we're gonna have. The more we're gonna end up, in a with a Down syndrome. The more we're gonna end up with depression. Why? I'm investing on something that is not going to last. So what's gonna happen? My time is gone, my resource is gone, my youth is gone, my prime of the years is gone, and I'm empty-handed. This is not only for us, even for the greatest figures when it comes to religion, we have the same concept. One of the great figures in religion that we know in the contemporary time, his name is Ayatollah Burjerdi. I'm sure a lot of you guys who have gone to, for example, Iran or city of Qom, his grave is actually inside of the shrine of Hazrat Suma, the sister to Imam al-Rida, our eighth Imam. He has a sister, right? She's buried in the city of Qom. Qom is known for the city of scholars. Inside of that shrine, there is a grave. You can see his name, his picture, right? Ayatollah Burujerd. So he's like, mashallah, when you look him online, you can see his resume, you can see his background, you can see everything that he has done. And then when we do a comparison, we're like, wow, mashallah, he's like the role model. He's like someone that maybe, if I'm blissful, I can do a portion of what he has done in terms of the number of the schools, number of the students, number of the books, number of the masajid, you name it, he has done it. Very same Ayatollah Burujerdi on the very last nights of his life, Shahid Mutahari goes to visit him, right? His sick is about to depart from this world. Shahid Mutahari goes to visit him, one of the last visits. He says when I went to visit him, I found him in a very stressful situation. He had these worries, right? The face was the face of a worry man. So I asked him why you're so worried. He says I'm about to leave the world and I don't know in what stage and I don't know what I have. I don't know what portion of the stuff that I have done has been accepted from me. It's the number, maybe, but what portion of those has been accepted from me? So Shaykh Mutahari says, we all look up to you when it comes to the amount of works, academic works, scientific works, Islamic works, everything you want to name, we all look up to you. If you're in this position, what am I supposed to be doing? What am I supposed to be doing? Even furthermore, are like Mawla al-Mawali, Amir al-Mu'mineen, Ali ibn Abi Talib, alayhi salatu wassalam. Very same situation. Now we're talking about the first Imam. We're talking about the one that everybody looks up. We're talking about the Imam whose one strike is higher than the worshipping of the Saqalain, the worshipping of both human and jinns combined. Yeah? One strike of him. What does he say when he's asked, "Oh, Amir al-Mu'mineen, why do you keep on working so hard? Take a break. Uh, Have a little bit of time for yourself. Go I don't know, go see the world. Go I don't know, have some leisure time with the family. Spend some time with the family. All the stuff that we do, right?" What does Amir al-Mu'mineen respond? He said, "If you can prove to me that a single deed of Amir al-Mu'mineen has been accepted, I will give up everything at the moment. I will never do another deed." but as long as you can prove it to me that it has been accepted. Why is Imam is saying this? It's not to make us disappointed of doing good deeds. No, he's telling us that it's a journey of a deed. It's not a one-time deal. Oh, Sheikh, what am I going to do in Muharram to get all of the sawab? And we're looking for one line, one action, one deed, and that's it. Khalas, I'll be good to go. And that's what usually happens. For 10 days of Muharram, we come in with one particular subjective, and once with one particular objective, and once that is met, we're gone as good as it can. No, it's a journey, right? The start of the journey happens in Muharram, but we're supposed to carry it through. We're supposed to build upon it. We're supposed to make sure we accomplish the higher levels of Iman and faith. It's not just what we're born with, right? Or it's not what we embraced. It's a matter of how much of this we can take it to the next level, and the next level, and the next level, and the next level. Is there any end to it? No. Why? Because the end result, it relies in a creator, that creator is unlimited. So the perfection he has for me and you is unlimited, right? Every single one of us are supposed to become unlimited, but we settle for what? For something that is not only limited, but at the same time is, for a temporary time, for 1 instant, for 1 second, for 2 seconds. How long does that new fresh smell of a new car last, right? How long does that joy of buying a new house last, right? How long does that, for example, getting your diploma, getting your bachelor, master, even PhD, how long does that joy last? Look at the athletes, right? Even when they become number one around the world, how long does that joy of, for example, going on the podium and getting that gold medal, that moment of joy, how long does it last? Right? So these are not the ultimate purpose. What is the ultimate purpose for humanity? If it was any of the stuff that we have seen, we would not have seen so many problems and corruptions around the world, so many oppressions. Hence, humanity is going on a different direction. So what happens when it goes on a different direction? Every so often we need reformation. Reformation that took place by the responsibility of Imam al-Ma'sum, Sayyid al-Shuhada alayhi salatu wasalam. The reason that he actually rose up against, the tyrants of his time. Why? Because he had reached the position in which if it was taken any more longer, the entire foundation of Islam, the value of humanity would have been gone, right? So now when it comes to our concept, our topic, mercy and justice, when we want to go back and we want to look at, again, the seerah, the lifestyle and the method and methodology of Abu Abdullah Hussein, the Bani Hashim and the companions. What examples can we pick and inshallah apply to our today's life, right? One of the examples is to focus on the ashab. It's much easier for me and you because a lot of times we focus on the imams, and imams, we always have this argument that, okay, they were given the divine knowledge. It's not a good argument, but I'll keep it for now. Inshallah, the following nights I'm going to talk about it. Just merely saying that imams are gifted with divine knowledge is not an excuse for me and you not to be able to mimic what they're doing, follow their footsteps, right? Because divine knowledge doesn't guarantee action. Even divine knowledge doesn't guarantee action, right? So infallibility doesn't mean they're immune to, let's say, or they don't have a choice of committing sinful conduct, correct? In a sense, if I want to, I can open it up. All of us have this immaculate, infallibility, but relatively speaking, right? In comparison to some of the particular deeds. For example, some of the deeds never cross our mind that I may possibly one day, conduct such a deed. For example, you're driving in the middle of the freeway, 60 miles, 70 miles per hour, 80 miles per hour. I don't know what's the speed limit here. Is it 60, 70, right? You're about that time. Has it ever occurred to you that all of a sudden you press on a brake, open the car, and start running backwards towards the incoming cars? Has it ever occurred into your minds? Please don't try this at your personal life, right? I have to put the disclaimer. Why not? It's a choice. We are capable of doing it, but it never crosses our mind, right? Why not? See, that's an example of being infallible towards such a stupid act, for example. Why? Because we know the outcome, and it's not like we have tested. Nobody has tested it to reach, inshallah, that conclusion, right? No, but by default, we understand, we acknowledge what's the outcome of such action. So we know, it's not like we think about it and say, oh, this is not good, I'm not going. No, it never crosses our mind. Take the same concept. expanded towards the sinful conduct. That's an example of what it means when we say infallible Imam. Meaning it is so crisp and clear the impacts and the effects, the negative impacts of the sinful conduct that our Imams, it never crosses even their mind to go and get near, think about, for example, the sinful conduct, right? So as we try to follow their footsteps, one of the easier way to get closer to our Imams is to focus on the Ashab and the companions. So we have a lot of elite companions in which he can become a role model for me and you. One of them is very famous. Everybody probably has heard his name. His name is Salman Farsi. In one hadith, right, he's mentioned in front of Nabi Rasulullah, Salman Farsi did such and such, right? All of a sudden, Nabi Rasulullah turns around and says, don't call him Salman Farsi, but rather call him Salman Muhammadi. Recite salawat. Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. If I'm not mistaken, is Imam al-Sadiq alayhi salatu wasalam was narrating the hadith. He says, don't call him Salman al-Farsi, call him the Salman who is attributed to Nabi Rasulullah. I think they're asking for gently whoever can is capable with, making the intention to move towards the member, inshallah, by reciting loud salawat. Muhammad. So Imam al-Sadiq is talking about Salman al-Farsi, and he's saying, don't use, his the what do you call it, Farsi, but rather attribute him to Nabi Rasulullah. Why? He mentions the famous quotation, Salman minna Ahlul Bayt. Salman has become part of us, the Ahlul Bayt. Now, there's a different translation of this part. Some of the ulama, they say, no, this means Salman al-Farsi was like an elder, like an uncle, right? So when he would come to the Ahlul Bayt, they would treat him as an uncle, and they would say, okay, he's part of us. That's one translation. When you look at the great scholars, right, when they focus on this one, they say no. When the Imam says minna Ahlul Bayt, it brings a definition that is part of the Ahlul Bayt, meaning it's talking about the unique quality of the Ahlul Bayt, in which you can see it in Salman, for example, as a companion. Meaning they're trying to show me and you that the pathway is open, it's possible. It's not like we see Ahlul Bayt in one corner and we see ourselves completely set. No, actually, they have become as the leader. What does the leader do? It leads us to where? To the qualities, characteristics, personalities that he himself contains. Otherwise, where is he leading us to? Right? So basically, Imam, when they give us a teaching, Imam al Ma'sum, they want us to reach their level. Yeah, their level. And that's what we see, for example, some of the examples in the Ashab, that they were very unique. Then Imam Sadiq starts talking about this because the other ones, they ask why, why he has become part of the Minna Ahlul Bayt. Now, again, this is another reason that the first translation is not correct, right? If it was only that, oh, look at him as a, uncle among community, we're trying to be respectful, this figurative talks, then they wouldn't have asked, so why he became part of the Ahlul Bayt. Then Imam Sadiq says because of the three things he did. The very first one, he had the likings for the fuqara. He had this passion, had sympathy towards the poor, right? He would sit down with the poor instead of sitting down with the rich. Now, take that concept, let's apply to our own life, right? How many people here are constant travelers? They're on the, mashallah, the A list, the what is that, the priority line, and right? So all of a sudden, we want to if, even for travelings, we tend to have this liking towards being treated in a luxurious way. Take that concept, apply to the very same quality of Salman Farsi. It's the exact opposite, right? Wanting to sit down with the poor and deprived, right? Wanting to sit down and spending time with those who nobody cares about. How much of that have you practiced? Two, it's his liking for ilm and alim, for the knowledge and scholars, right? And this liking is not something that he pretends. No, constant seeking of knowledge becomes one of those primary qualities that makes one person such as Salman as a part of the Ahlul Bayt. Three, which is the most perhaps difficult one, is that Salman was able to make a change. Change in what? Change in going according to his own will, and instead applying the will of Amir al-Mu'mineen in his life. What does Amir al-Mu'mineen will expect from me? I will go that way. I will do that thing, right? And what would I want? So many things. No, giving up that what I want, giving up what I feel, giving up what I think, giving up what I prefer. And that becomes a challenge. Why? Because we're living in a society that consumerism is number one thing of this society. So it's always about me, my preferences, my likings, what I would like all the comments, all the like social medias, all the the hearts and like the thumbs up. It's always about me. So here comes the first challenge. If the pathway is to gain that status of companionship of such as like the Ahlul Bayt, if I want to be among those companions who were able to submit themselves on the pathway of Abu Abdullah al-Hussein on the day of Ashura, I have to make sure the very first step I'm able to say no to all of this that is constantly bombarding my mind and is making the I bigger and bigger and bigger every day to the point that we don't take any words for a second like for granted. It's like, oh, this is how I feel, this is what I do, right? And we feel good about it. Now sometimes this is good, sometimes if it's on the right path it's good, don't get me wrong, but we have to have this criterion in which we can make a comparison. So talking about Salman al-Farsi, let's go to the movement of Ashura. Let's go among the ashab of Sayyid al-Shuhada. Now, among the ashab, there are so many which have a, mashallah, very interesting background. There's some of them are like, among those elite members, those prime, perhaps we can say, soldiers or companions of Imam al-Hussein. And you can find, again, examples for any of us. If you, again, one of the highly recommended deeds from ulama is as we get closer to the day of Ashura, number one, take the day of Ashura off from work or school. So if you haven't already done so, please do so, right? And two, don't take it off and spend it on video games. Take it up and spend it on reading the maqatil, reading the books about what took place in Ashura, not only to read them as a story, as an epic story, no, read them and, contemplate, right? It's a day in which we're supposed to like basically take away for the entire remaining of our year. It's not only forgiveness. Remember, forgiveness is the first step, right? So as a recommendation, they say go and like read the maqatil, read the books that have been written for the historical aspect of Ashura and contemplate on different personality. Try to find your own role model. Which one, like which one of the ashab do you feel closer to, and try to learn more about them. And today, with again, the technology is so much easier as long as we make sure it's authentic sources. Authentic sources. That one I underline. So one of the ashab, one of the companions, in which usually on the fifth night of the Muharram, they talk about the ashab. One of them perhaps steals this pride of being a companion from everybody else. Why? Because when you look at his background is mashallah all piety. When you look at from a knowledge aspect, he's well known for his knowledge. When we look at for his loyalty, he's all loyalty. Despite of his older age, right? He's plus 70 years old, but still he becomes one of the specific individuals that Imam al-Hussein writes a personal letter to him. Probably have guessed who I'm going to talk about. His name is Habib ibn Muzahir. Apparently it's Muzahir. Some the common like thing we say Mazahir, but it's Muzahir, right? So Habib ibn Muzahir, one of the companions that even at the time of Amir al-Mu'minin, time of Imam al-Hassan al-Mujtaba, all the way to the time of Abu Abdullah al-Hussein, and he's gifted with the knowledge of actually foreseeing the future events. There is a counter up between him right now before the tragedy of Karbala, in which he actually talks about like his own, ending. Nonetheless, what's the occasion? He's sitting in his home having dinner with his wife. All of a sudden, a messenger comes, knocks on the door. The description of the scene says that he was about to take the next bite. The bite is in midair. The messenger comes in and says, "I have a letter for you from the grandson of Nabi Rasulullah." It's not like, okay, let me take this bite out and then I'll open it later, right? As he's holding the bite, he lets go. It's like, give me the letter. You can see like how much loyalty, because a lot of times little things doesn't matter. Oh, it's another bite. Moulana is going like in 1 second. No, it's the letter. It's a message from the grandson of Nabi Rasulullah. It has priority over every little things. It has priority over everything. Like little sense, it has priority even for my, over my own breath and life. And that's why he puts the bite down. He takes the letter. He kisses it. He puts it on his eyes. He opens it, and he starts reading it. To whom? To his wife. His wife says, "Okay, what does he say?" Say he's saying, he's conveying his salam from Abu Abdullah to the Rajulun Faqih, to a man who is a faqih, who is a, like, expert in religion. Then Imam puts one line, right? Don't prevent yourself from assisting us, right? Don't hold your back, don't hold yourself back. Just one line, doesn't even say directly to come to our assistance. It says, don't, hold yourself from our assistance. So you can imagine that moment. He's reading the letter, one line from the grandson of Nabi Rasulullah, looking at the eyes of, his wife. What would he do? It's like when the message comes just like that. Imagine you're in the majlis, you go outside, you're about to eat your nazr, all of a sudden there comes a call. Are we ready to drop everything and go? Or no, it's like, okay, let me, check some balances. Let me make sure my, final test scores are good. Maybe make sure like all of my debts are paid. Maybe make sure I like, all of my taxes are done. Everything is done in good shape. Then inshallah, we can talk about it later. If it's the second one, I'm nowhere close to that one, right? Because imagine if it's 70 plus, he has so many attachments, right? The family, the work, the friends, his status, all of this is there. It's not like, they didn't have anything else to do except just to answer the call of Imam Hussein. No, they were busy men. They were well known. And so many people would go out, to them, and their time was very precious. Drops everything, right? Only him and another companion of himself, Muslim ibn Awsaja. These two are able to leave the city of Kufa. In what stage? In which their tribal men, they actually start to, like, defending themselves so they can open up a pathway that they can exit the city of Kufa. There's already, Omar Assad, he had already put the Ubaidullah ibn Ziyad, he had already put the guards around on the exit sides of the Kufa, not allowing anybody that wants may possibly have a chance to join Imam al Hussein to leave the city of Kufa. Not only that, he put a lot of them actually in prison. So Habib ibn Muzahir and Muslim ibn Usaja, they managed to exit and basically flee from the city of Kufa, heading towards Karbala. Now imagine badges and badges, groups of soldiers are going towards Karbala. But on which side? Which is why one of the Maghatil narrates this from the language of Sayyidah Zainab salamullah alayha, as she says, she's talking to Imam al-Hussein, and she says, oh, Abu Abdullah, why do I see that every night groups and groups and groups of soldiers are coming and joining the side of Umar Assad, but not a single one comes towards our way? The Mazlumiyat of the Ahlul Bayt. As she's narrating this, as she's raising this question, one of the soldiers from the army of Imam al-Hussein says, we have two people coming towards our way. First, some of them, they think maybe they're part of the enemy, they have like a messenger or something. Imam al-Hussein looks, smiles, says, no, I know these two. One of them is Habib, the other one is Muslim ibn Usaja. By giving the news of two people joining the army of Imam al-Hussein, Sayyidah Zainab becomes happy. It's like, wow, mashallah, you got two people. Instead of all these thousands and thousands and thousands, badges and badges and badges that join the enemy side. Now imagine how much of a status did Habib have. And you can again see it on the night before Ashura. Another event happens on the night before Ashura. They hear again the words of Sayyidah Zainab from inside of a tent. Hilal ibn Nafi is the narrator. He says, I was on the guard. It was my portion of the night to guard, and I could hear some of the words that was being exchanged between Sayyidah Zainab and Imam al-Hussein. So she turns around and asks Abu Abdullah al-Hussein that, are you sure from your companions? Are you sure they're going to stand up? Are you sure they're going to show their support? Because it's the night before Ashura. It's the last moment. So Hilal gets a little, offended. It's like, why say that Zainab doesn't believe in us? He goes back to the khayma of the tent of, the ashab, and then he finds Habib in the center. All the ashab have circled around him, and he's giving a speech, getting ready for the next day. And he tells them, oh Habib, do you know what I heard? This is what I heard. Sayyidah Zainab Salamun alayha's heart is not confident in our willpower. Habib turns all the soldiers to get up, remove your shoes, put all your weapons down in a form of a slave. Let's go out. In the form of a slave. All the ashab, they come out and they come in, line up in front of the claim of Imam al-Hussein, under the tent of Abu Abdullah. What is it, oh Habib, middle of the night in this state? So we have come here to say that if you give us the order, if you give us the green light right now, right moment, we will go and we will start the fight with bare hands, and none of us will return until making sure that the heart of Sayyidah Zainab is satisfied with our action. We don't need swords, we don't need spears. With the bare hand, we will go on, we will fight into the very last breath of our life. That's Habib ibn Muzahir. And he's leading the Ashab, the companions of Sayyid al-Shuhada. Now, that's one aspect, social aspect, the personal attachment that he has to Imam al-Hussein. It's very interesting. The time which Habib ibn Muzahir becomes Shaheed is actually very close to the noon prayer of the day of Ashura. Why? He's one of the guards who are supposed to protect Imam when he is about to stand up for prayer. So right when Imam al-Hussein stands up to like start the prayer, right, one of these mal'unins is close enough, he shouts out and he says, "Oh Hussein, your prayer will never be accepted." He's telling about Abdullah Hussein. Habib ibn Muzahir right there. He hears the claim, right? Now, as a soldier, there's so many things they say, but he cannot take it. Immediately he responds back. He says, "Oh fool, the prayer of the grandson of Nabi Rasulullah will not be accepted, and your prayer will be? How fool can you be?" Right? And he gets so angry by just one false claim. It shows how much of attachment he has. That he takes out his sword, he draws his sword, and he starts attacking towards the man who had made the claim. He wounds him. As he wounds him, a battle takes place because these other, the army men, they started like coming to the assistance of that man. So now it's Habib versus a few. There is a very short battle in the sense that they say all of a sudden the dust settles down. They see Habib ibn Muzahir's body on the plains of Karbala. But the Habib who has given his entire life in the love of Imam al Hussein, what happens? His Shahada takes place during the time of the Salat of Imam al Hussein. So as he hits down the ground, he doesn't mention the name of Imam al Hussein. He doesn't say, because he knows Imam is offering his prayer. He knows his responsibility. And he knows Imam al Hussein will look after him. So as his body falls down on the ground, the battle continues. Why? Because Habib was so famous that they had to fight over who gets the honor of beheading his head from his body. So now you have all of these enemies that they go back and forth among one another, trying to race one another, compete one another, that who is going to be the first one, who is going to be heading, the Habib ibn Muzahir's head from, beheading him from his body. So as they're fighting, the fight becomes even more to the point that Omar Assad, the commander of the enemy, notices that these guys are fighting over who's going to get the head of Habib ibn Muzahir as the trophy of war. So he says, "Calm down, you guys, calm down. It's not like one of you have killed Habib, but I will announce it that a group of you, as a group, is responsible for killing of Habib ibn Muzahir." They say after the Ashura, when they take the heads of Shuhada back to the city of Kufa, one of them is in charge of carrying the head of the Habib. How they would do it? For 1 hour, one person will hold on to the head. They will pass it to another person for 1 hour, to the third person, and such, so that they will have the honor of the trophy of war. They enter the city of Kufa. The one who's carrying the head of Habib, he's laying it on the side of the neck of his horse. He says, "As I was about to enter the gateway of Kufa, I noticed one child keeps on staring at me and keeps on staring at the head of the Habib on the side of my horse. So I even tested. I went a little bit forward. He was following me. I went to the left side. He kept on following me. I tried to make a quick turn. He was still standing there. So I ensured that he's following me and he has something to say. So I turned around and said, 'What do you want? Why are you following me? Why you keep on looking at me like that?' He said, 'My name is Qasim. I am the son of Habib. I am the son of the head that you're hanging by the side of the neck of your horse. Do me one favor. You want to take it in, take it. You want it as a trophy, have it. But just let me have a moment with the head of my father so I can say my farewell to Habib ibn Muzahir.'" The soldier thought for a second. He says, "No, this is my trophy of war. I will never lay eyes from it." The son started asking again and again, okay, so just 1 second, maybe to just let me embrace it for a second. No matter what he requested it, the soldier kept on saying no. That this is one farewell between the son and the father. Let's go to the day of Ashura. La yawmka yawmika ya Aba Abdullah. I know that this is a very difficult moment for a son to see a head of his own father being hanged on the side of a horse, and he's looking eye to eye and he cannot do anything. But imagine in the middle of the kharabat of Sham, in the middle of Damascus and the wreckage of Damascus, in the middle of the night, a 3 year old of Abu Abdullah, she wakes up from the dream and she says, I had seen my father come to my rescue. Oh, Imam al Hussein, where are you? Bring a tray covered with the layer over her and in front of this 3 year old of Abu Abdullah. What does she do? She keeps on looking at the tray and the cover and she's perhaps questioning, what is it that I have asked? What is it that they have brought? And all of a sudden, she reaches in with her tiny hands, removes the cover from the tray. But what does she see? The Maghtal says she pulls back for a second and she's giving the eye and the look of a wonder girl and looking and saying, what's going on here? What am I looking at? Imagine what has happened to the head of Abu Abdullah when his 3 year old cannot recognize the face of her own father for the very first glance. So she keeps on thinking. Then she reaches forward. She picks up the head of Abu Abdullah and she starts venting with Imam al Hussein. Oh, Baba Jan, who has done this to your face? Oh, Baba Jan, who has done this to your teeth? Oh, Baba Jan, who has taken your Ammama? Oh, Baba Jan, what has happened to your beard? Oh, Baba, when I talk to you, how come you didn't respond back to me? Oh, Baba, what, who has cut off the veins of your neck? Here comes a pitch silence in the wreckage of Sham. Sayyida Zainab looking, seeing the 3 year old on one side, the Abu Abdullah on the other. Let's combine our prayers. Let's say our salam to Abu Abdullah. Assalamu alayka ya Abu Abdullah. وعلى الأرواح التي حلت بفنائك عليك مني سلام الله أبدا ما بقيت وبقي الليل والنهار ولا جعله الله آخر اللهب مني لزيارتكم السلام على الحسين إلى علي بن وعلى علي وعلى أصحابه. One more time on behalf of Marhumin Marhumat. Assalamu ala Hasan وعلى علي بن الحسين وعلى بعد الحسين وعلى أصحاب الحسين. Oh Allah, we ask you on the right of Abu Abdullah, on the right of Ahlul Bayt, on the right of Quran. Oh Allah, hasten the appearance of our Imam of time, and inshallah grant every single one of us the bounty to be part of his companions. Oh Allah, will ask you for forgiveness upon all of us, upon all of our marhumin and marhumat, and we ask you for shifa, complete shifa, speedy shifa for all of the mu'minin and mu'minat who are facing sicknesses or diseases or facing difficulties in their life, asking you to answer their hawaij and requests in the utmost merciful way. Oh Allah, oh Allah, oh Allah, will ask you to accept this majalis on behalf of your mercy, and inshallah extend the sawab and rewards of this majalis to the souls of marhumin, marhumat, shuhada, Ulama Izam Maraja and Maqsus and the Shaheed Manzoor. Oh Allah will ask you to grant all of us the bounty of the ma'rifat of Imam al-Hussein and the rest of the Ahlul Bayt, and inshallah grant all of us the bounty for going to their ziyarat within our life and the benefits of their shafa'ah in this world and the next. رحم الله من قرأ الفاتحة مع الصلوات. الله يرحم ما ويرحمه.